Thank you, viewers and residents and objectors for your patience. We hope we've ironed out some of those issues and we'll resume the PARM meeting for the Moreland City Council 23rd of March. We're just having Adam clarify some questions. What I might do, Esha, is I might actually go to, so just stay there, Adam, please. I'm going to go to the proponent rather and have them make their presentation. And that may pick up some of the concerns you've raised and the previous objector. And then if we have other further questions, we might be able to clarify it. We try not to get into a discourse at this point, but it's kind of, we're trying to be kind to you as well because of the technical issues. So can you bear with us and stay tuned? And we'll just go to the objector now. I'm just going to go to no, there's only two, Sue. So Robert Carletti of Track Consultants, the applicant, would you like to speak, please? And we'll take some questions of councillors after that to officers or the applicant. Robert, can you speak? Just a minute. We can't hear your sound, but we'll just. Have you got? I assume you've come off mute. Just give us a second, Robert. Sorry. It's really testing our systems tonight. I apologise for that. Testing everyone's patience. Do you want to try now, Robert, and see if we can hear you? You want to say something and we'll try that. No, can't hear you, I'm sorry. Sorry, Robert, we're just waiting to see. I'm just going to ask for some guidance, so give me a minute. Sorry, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us. Our technicians are speaking with Robert just to try and sort that out. So, Robert, they're trying to call you just to clear up what's going on. Thanks for your patience, everyone, once again. Might as well. Saying something, please. Can you speak, Robert? Just to test the system.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank goodness.
I heard my feedback. Great.
Your sound's a little bit low, so if you can come a bit closer to the speaker, perhaps that would help. We can see you quite well, but yeah. Or if you've got a microphone.
Give me 1 second.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your patience. Try again.
Great. Is that any better?
Oh, yes, marginally. Please continue, Robert. I think we can hear you.
Great. Good evening. I'm from Track Consultants and we represent our clients, Paragon 23, in this matter. Firstly, we just want to extend our thanks to the council officers, particularly those in the planning, ESD and urban design departments for their collaborative approaches on this project, which has resulted in the outstanding project that is before you today. As you will have read from the officer's report, the application has a long history, with the previous application lodged in 2017, which was not supported by council and subsequently VCAT. The benefit of this decision is that it gave us some very clear direction about what is appropriate for the site, including height, setbacks, internal amenity, and urban design. Our client engaged Track to work with the council officers to ensure that the redesign proposal will meet council's expectations and be consistent with the VCAT commentary. We've worked extensively with council.
Sounds dropped out. Just a minute. Sorry, mate.
It's okay.
Just bear with me. Robert, can you try just say something just to test that we can hear you again?
Testing.
Yep, we can hear you again.
Testing.
Thank you. Please continue.
Right. Yep. We have worked extensively with council over the past 2 or so years during the application process to achieve an excellent outcome. The property is identified by the planning scheme as being capable of accommodating high-density residential growth, with the DDO 22 providing the guidelines for this growth. Sorry, can you still hear me? Hello?
Going.
Okay, great. Sorry. DDO 22 gives guidance for a 6-storey and a 21-metre height. Our proposal seeks a 7-storey building with a 22.6-metre height, which, while seeking to vary the DDO, provides a good level of transition between the adjoining properties, which at 7 and 9 storeys both exceed the preferred height. DDO 22 also provides guidance for a 4-storey street wall height, which the proposal provides, as well as a highly active interface to the street. The development will also have setbacks to adjoining properties that respond to the existing context to minimise amenity impacts to those properties. Importantly, the height and setbacks proposed all comply with the VCAT decision and have been supported by Council's Urban Design Department. The development is highly compliant with the Better Apartment Design Standards. Notably, both Council's planning and ESD departments support the proposal. Council officers were satisfied that daylight modelling provided ensures good amenity. There are 97% of apartments, in lieu of the 50% required, that provide access for people with limited mobility, 70% of apartments that have cross ventilation, in lieu of the 40% required, and apartments are oriented to have good outlooks. The proposal also provides various ESD initiatives, including bicycle facilities above and beyond the scheme requirements, a shading strategy for north and west facing windows, communal veggie patch, EV charging spots, solar panels, and the like. In specific responses to Adam's query before in relation to overlooking, so the amended plans show that where there's any windows within 9 metres, as required by the planning scheme, they've been appropriately screened to 1.7 metres above the finished floor level. In specific relation to the rooftop deck as well, there is a 1.7 high metre privacy screen, in addition to the location of the services and the lift core, which separates the rooftop deck from the properties at 11 to 15 Brunswick Road. Happy to take any questions, and apologies if you haven't heard any of that properly.
We picked up some of it, most of it, I hope. Thank you, Robert, for your patience and presenting there. I'm going to now ask the councillors if you have any questions of Escher, the officer, or Robert, the applicant, please. Councillor Bolton, thank you.
Hi, thanks everybody. I was wondering if the applicant has answered all of the questions that Adam had about whether or not issues had been addressed or not. So I'd like to ask Adam if all of the issues that you were worried about have been addressed by the applicant just then, or if there are other issues.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for the question. The truthful answer is it's very hard to assess from such a fast and high level presentation. I might just specifically focus on the one item of the rooftop sort of garden party area. I believe the original application, not the 2017 one, but the 2020 one, I believe that had the 1.7 metre screen. And it was on the boundary, the western boundary of that area. And it was very easy to model from some elevations that if someone stood on the eastern side of the space, they could just look straight across the top of it up into our bedrooms. What was worse, however, was that there was some fixed seating in the plans as well, which I believe is still there. And if someone just took that small step up onto the fixed seating, that 1.7 metres gives absolutely zero privacy across. So any screening of windows may be relevant for lower floors, but it's absolutely not relevant for our floor. And so I'm now quite concerned that actually changes that mean that people can't look across from the rooftop into our bedrooms have been made. So the short answer to your question is I can't answer fully as to whether certain things have been resolved.
Adam, we'll get that response for you because screening should have been addressed. Esha, can you please speak to the screening matter and how that's been addressed in the application? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. I might share my presentation again because that's got the plans and I can speak to the plans. So can everyone see my presentation?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I've lost my mouse, but that's okay. I'll speak through it. So on the left image, you've got the level 2 to 4 plans. I'm not sure how clear it is, but there should be louver style screens on the bedroom windows. So it's that middle section where it's set back 3.5 metres. I'm not sure whether that's clearly shown.
Yes.
I think can I just ask a question of Council Officer? I think what Adam was talking about was from the communal garden and looking upwards. So he felt that the screening protected the units below, but not the. I get the impression that he's further up, and so it's the, what's been done to try and address overlooking or
Upward
looking up from to bedrooms above.
Sure. So
That's
I've got an image of the communal roof terrace. So there is plant and services along here, and I think that can't read it. I'm really sorry, but that's where the communal area of the roof terrace is. So I think from memory that was set back about 16 metres. I might need to get to the plans. So
could I quickly respond? I'm a bit close to the screen to be able to advise, but the distance between the area of the rooftop deck to the windows of other residents is beyond the 9 metres required to be screened by the planning scheme. But despite that, as was explained by the planning consultant from Track Consultants, there is a screen device on the western side of the rooftop deck to 1.7 that would comply with the screening requirements of RES code.
Thanks.
Which, if I may, just briefly, means that anyone standing in that space can look straight up into our bedrooms. And I believe a very small addition would make all of the difference. I think it would actually, a very small addition to that height would completely obstruct the ability to look up into our bedrooms. I'm 1.8 metres tall. My eye height's about 170. If I stood next to the current screen, I could absolutely look straight up there, and I'm a medium height person. I just would, I honestly think a tiny amount of difference, like probably 40 or 50 centimetres addition would probably make all the difference and just obstruct that altogether. It would be very easy to do the modelling from the elevation.
Just a minute, we'll get a response.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Adam, can I suggest that the officer advice tonight and in the council report is that this proposal, in terms of the issue that you're raising, is compliant with the planning scheme. When you received public notice, you would have had a notice and a letter attached to that, which would give you Esha's direct number. If you still don't have that, I'm happy for you to. So if you wish to call Esha tomorrow, or if you can't find that, call our main number and ask for myself or Esha, and we'll be happy to take you through how this proposal meets those concerns.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
I'm just going to ask.
I have been in
Thanks.
touch.
Thanks. I'm just going to ask Philip Priest to actually explain for you, Adam. You had some concerns about following how, through the process, how objectors' concerns are being resolved through the process leading up to tonight. And I'm just going to ask Philip to clarify that, because my understanding is, and I'm hoping Philip can clarify, that actually often you don't get to know how everyone else's concerns are being addressed unless you're talking to Escher or the officers. So I'm just going to get Philip to clarify from their point of view as officers. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. So, as part of the consultation on the planning process, the officer who is dealing with the planning application, the direct line is provided as part of the documentation that's sent out to immediate neighbours, and is available to assist with advice in relation to compliance with the planning scheme and the officer's assessment. The officer report before tonight's meeting also seeks to provide a level of response within constraints of how long that report can be within the agenda as a response to those concerns. But if there's further detail lacking after the agendas come out, more than appropriate that you contact officers, and we're more than happy to speak to you about concerns.
Thank you. I'll call tomorrow. I've got 5 people that I've spoken to. I've got all the dates and details. This has been on my agenda since the very first submission and objection I made in 2020, and it appears that actually nothing's been changed. And I've been trying to seek clarification. No one's given me any until tonight, and it's very clear that nothing's changed on that 170 centimetres, despite talking to 5 different people at the council. But I will call Escher tomorrow and escalate if need be. Thank you.
If that was a condition to increase it by 70 centimetres or something that was proposed by the objector.
I'm sorry, was that a question for me? The audio
Yes.
was
Yes, it was.
cut out.
No, Adam, not you. It's Robert Carletti, the proponent.
Right.
So, Robert, did you hear the question?
Yep, sorry.
No, sorry.
Councillor Bolton, can you repeat the question, please?
So this is a question for the applicant. So you would have just heard the objector, hopefully, suggest that if the screen was on the balcony, on the communal rooftop terrace, if the screen on that was increased by 70 to 80 centimetres, that would resolve the looking up issue into the bedrooms of their unit. Would you be prepared to accept that if that was an amendment to the condition?
Yeah.
Well, I think look, as we've said, as I've said previously, and as the officers have said as well, the 1.7 metres is what would usually be required if it was less than 9 metres away. Obviously, in this instance, we've got a separation of much more than 9 metres. So we've put the 1.7 metre screen there in order to address the potential overlooking concern. If the screen was higher, the only potential impact, I guess, of that would be potential additional shadows to the communal open space, which we are providing, which might have the added, which might impact amenity on some of that communal open space. But if that makes sense, if that can be heard.
Robert, that's your answer. Thanks. We might move on. Are there any other questions? If not, I'm going to move on to the rest of the agenda. Thank you to the objectors and Robert. I'm going to now ask Councillor, does anyone wish to move a motion, please? Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Please speak to the motion and which one you're moving. Thanks. Just to be clear, and then we'll seek a seconder.
Yeah. Do I need to stand anymore? Yes, I've got an alternative recommendation, which I'm also proposing to incorporate an amendment in light of this conversation to increase the screening that's just been discussed. So anyway, my motion is about increasing the ESD and bike parking and plus an additional screening of 1.9 metres total.
Total screening of
So if
1.9.
I have a seconder, I'll talk to that. 1.7.
Oh, 1.7.
Thanks, Councillor Panopoulos is seconding.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Please speak to the motion, Councillor.
Yeah, so I'll just talk overall, so stepping back a bit. We did consider proposing an amendment to reduce the height originally, because I know this is a 7-storey development and that it does exceed. So yeah, there was the previous VCAT decision said a 6 or 7-storey development would be acceptable at this site. This is a 7-storey proposal, so it is on the upper end of that decision. But there's also a planning control called the DDO specifically that applies to this site. So that's sort of council's own rule, and council's own, and this proposal is 1 metre above that that control. So we did consider proposing an amendment to reduce the overall height by 1 metre, but after discussions with the planning team, it does seem that that would almost likely definitely end up at VCAT. And it doesn't seem to be worth it in this application, in my opinion. I suppose we have to sort of pick our battles in terms of when we go to VCAT. So personally comfortable with the 1 metre exceeding of the preferred height here. And then I just have some minor amendments to increase the, so my amendments propose to increase the ESD from 6.7 stars to 7.5. And also include more bike parking out the front. And also, I'm just happy to incorporate the amendment to increase the screening on I think it's the west side of the development on the rooftop from the proposed 1.7 to 1.9 metres. So I think that's a pretty acceptable height unless you're extremely tall. I think that should probably address the issues. Otherwise, if we go too high, then we're going to create a pretty ugly wall, which might go again, that might create its own set of new problems. So I think to kind of hear what you're saying about having the issue of looking upwards, I hear what you're saying, there's seating and stuff, and people could step on that to do some overlooking. I think 1.9 might be a good compromise, so we don't have a big sheer wall that the residents on the rooftop are looking at all the time.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Panopoulos.
Thanks, Mayor. Just very quickly to add to what Councillor Conlon has said, I believe that the alternative that's been put forward, it works towards trying to achieve the best possible outcomes with what is before us, and acknowledging that we do have guidance from VCAT saying 6 or 7 is acceptable, and so we have that framework. So it's about saying, okay, we've got that. How can we get the greatest number of benefits for existing residents and also the future residents, for people that will be living there in the future? And I think this does that quite well.
Thank you, Councillor. Question of clarification, Councillor Bolton.
Which point is the amendment
we're
about
just-
the screening
We're
going
just getting,
into?
thank you, Councillor Bolton. That wording is just being circulated right now. We'll just clarify that. Can you hold a moment while we get that circulated, and we'll get that up on the screen for you? There's been enough confusion tonight, so it'd be really good to have clarity on that. Whilst that's being shared, I think it's an additional 20 centimetres. Is that right, Councillor Conlon? Yeah. So that's the intention. We'll just get the wording for you, Councillor Conlon. Are there speakers in debate, please? Anyone speaking against? Or anyone wish to speak for this motion? I might just put myself on the speaking list, which is just to say that objectors have raised issues around the reduced rate of parking. And whilst there's been a lot of said about zero parking in multi-unit developments in Moreland, there is still quite strong policies that are enunciated by this council about reducing parking in multi-unit developments. A lot of residents believe that's going to increase the parking demand on the street. However, more cars in a building doesn't necessarily result in less parking on the street. If people are wishing to move into multi-unit developments without cars and relying on share cars, for example, or Ubers or taxis, old technologies like public transport, that means they can actually live in a property that doesn't actually require parking and they don't need to have cars, and they may have friends and families who may come and visit. They can park on the street for 2 hours free. The limited parking on our streets doesn't mean by limiting parking in a building that that's necessarily going to follow. So I just wanted to make that comment, and it's worth noting. So with the other provisions in here, the improved accessibility on this building, the rate of accessible dwellings, and if this proposal to even increase the environmental sustainable design elements from 6.7 to 7.5? Yes. I'd be more than happy to consider supporting this then. Thank you. Are there other speakers in debate? If not, there was no one speaking against. We don't need to have a response. So I'll put that to the motion. All those in favour of the alternate being considered. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And I want to thank the objectors and everyone for your absolute patience with us tonight. And Adam, please follow up that other, or we've already addressed some of it this evening. Actually, was that amendment, it's up on the screen now, just so people are clear about the 1.7 metres screen height, the level of that.
In the conditions it's going into, that's all.
So it would be added to, through the Mayor,
Yeah,
it would be
thanks.
added to condition, it would be a new condition.
At 1B.
1B.4.
Yeah, 1B.4 was where that additional wording will go. Thanks to the note takers. Thanks, Councillor Bolton. Thanks, everyone, for your patience. We'll get there. Okay, I'm going to ask the officer to tell us the next steps, please. Thanks, Esha.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. So Council has resolved to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to the conditions contained within the alternate recommendation motion. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objected parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objected will have 21 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at BCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions in the permit. Thank you.
Thanks, Esha. Thank you to all those viewers online for your patience this evening, and we hopefully will get a smoother meeting happening on the next item, which is 5.2. It's 52 Home Street, Brunswick East. It's MPS/2020/427. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? If not, and I just, for the sake of the meeting, Councillor Pulford is not in the meeting any longer, as far as I'm aware. He dropped out some time ago, so there's only 6 councillors here, and this is a quorum. We need every councillor here to get through the business this evening, just to note that. I'm going to ask Kylie Sullivan, our planning coordinator, to present on this item. Thanks, Kylie.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. So this second item is relating to 52 Home Street in Brunswick East. It's at the decision-making side of the process. This is an application for a 5-storey building with 2 levels of basement parking below. It's a mixed-use development comprising 2 retail premises, 2 offices, 24 dwellings and a rooftop terrace. There's a provision of 28 car parking spaces and seeking a reduction of 12 spaces overall, and there's 64 bicycle spaces provided within. In terms of the key planning controls, the site's within the Commercial 1 zone, and it's also covered by the Design and Development overlay, car parking overlay and an environmental audit overlay. In terms of the strategic policy setting, the site is located in an area of significant change in accordance with our Housing Framework Plan at Clause 0204, and this is where housing diversity and growth and change is encouraged, particularly around activity centres as per the 20-minute neighbourhood principles. It's also with relating to DDO 24, this is the Nicholson, Home Street and Moreland Road Neighbourhood Centre, and it's got a preferred overall height of 13.5 metres, which is equivalent to about 4 stories. This is the site and surrounds. So the site fronts Home Street on the eastern side of the street there. To its northern side, we've got a Shell service station, and to the south, we've got some commercial properties. To the the western side of the street, we've got residential properties fronting Home Street, and to the eastern side here and to the south, we've got residential properties. Immediately abutting the property to its eastern side is a commercial property.
Kylie, just come back a bit because it's popping. Yeah, they pick you up pretty well. You don't. No thanks.
So here's some images of the property here. We can see currently it's a 2-storey commercial property, which is now currently operating as a gym, as I understand, and a first-floor office. To the north side, that's the Shell service station, and then to the south side, we can see those commercial properties, which are in the range of 2 stories. In terms of consultation, we received 13 objections, and we've got the objective map there on the right-hand side. In terms of the issues that were raised, they're mainly related to do with the height, the building being out of character with the area, particularly in relation to its height, car parking reduction, loading and traffic issues, use of the laneway for vehicle access and safety concerns relating to that, the dwelling design within the building itself, off-site amenity impacts, namely relating to overshadowing, overlooking and visual bulk and noise, and also some concerns from the service station to the north side there relating to impacts, particularly during construction phase. There's a planning and information discussion meeting held earlier this month. In attendance, we briefly saw Councillor Conlon, and we had 4 objectors attend. In relation to the considerations, key considerations, they relate to the building height and setbacks, off-site amenity impacts, car parking and vehicle access, and design merit in itself. The key issues relating to the building height, in relation to the design and development overlay, there's a preferred height of 4 stories, and it's seeking to exceed that by 1 level. As you can see here with the south elevation plan, when we're looking at from the opposite side of the street, get my cursor to work here, we've got the sight line here that shows that when you're looking from the opposite side of the street, the 5th level, which is recessed, will not be visible. So the 4-storey height, street wall height, aligns with the DDO vision, and also the setbacks from the side and rear boundaries align with the DDO 24 requirements. In relation to off-site amenity impacts, this image here shows you the shadow diagrams, and you can see here that the shadows are quite minimal and certainly don't impact any of the residential interfaces to the west, and that's in the late afternoon hours there. And then in terms of the overlooking, we can see here from the balcony areas where you have overlooking opportunities, we've got the 9-metre arc shown in this diagram, that there's no views to any sensitive spaces within the requirements of Res Code. In relation to car parking and vehicle access, we can see here one of the basement level plans. All the car parking spaces are just straight in and out. It's not car stacker reliance. We've got some disabled parking spaces as well, which are used for commercial use. In relation to the reduction in car parking that's sought, it's supported by Council's development engineers, namely because the site is located in the PPTN, where we've got good provision for public transport options, and there's also a really high provision of bicycle spaces on site. In relation to the use of the laneway, this is actually encouraged by council policy, and laneway use for vehicles in and out of buildings is quite a common occurrence. One of the conditions of the recommendation is to include a signalling system to help manage those movements in case there's any conflict along the laneway. The commercial spaces can also be used for loading purposes when required. In terms of the design merit, there's some excellent materials through the brickwork, and so they're quite robust and strong. We've got a simple and elegant design language, which is supported by Council's Urban Design Unit. We've got good activation at street level with the ground floor shop frontages there, and also passive surveillance to the street to all these properties and balconies that are fronting onto Home Street. And we've also got an awning, which is providing shelter to the public realm there on the footpath. So given the strong alignment with strategic planning policy, it's recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued for the proposal, subject to the recommended conditions, which seeks to have a high level of compliance with the Res Code. High levels of ESD are also delivered. Risks associated with the adjoining service station are properly addressed, and vehicle access is suitably managed. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm now going to ask the objectors to present, and we've got 4 objectors who've indicated they would like to. I'm going to ask Ros Mattia. Ros, if you can come off mute. Thanks. Please make your presentation.
Thank you for listening to me, and I thank you, Kylie, for explaining all that. There was some issues with that because I'm on the east of the property, and I was part of 52 Home Street. I'm now 52A. There was openings in our party wall, and it was never built to be two separate properties like this. So for this development, so I'm concerned about our party wall. I will be taking photos of it now, and I will be looking out for cracks forming and whatever could happen with the excavation right against it. It's a 100-year-old building. Yeah, I'm nervous about that. I'm also nervous about the laneway, the narrowness of the laneway and cars going in and out. I have a door right beside their roll-up garage door, and so I don't know how that will work with the pedestrians and the cars. And I'm also worried about what noise. Is there meant to be a siren or something that goes off when the cars are coming and going to let the cars know which ones are coming in and which ones are going out of the same narrow laneway? It concerns me how that's going to work. And maybe it's just a light. A light would certainly be better than any sort of siren that goes off, alerting the cars, but then you want to have the safety. And I have 12 skylights, which would be affected by overshadowing. And I got a diagram from Time Architects trying to improve the overshadow problem. And so they did a diagram until 3 p.m. And so after 3 p.m., they didn't want to show me what would happen. So it already 3 p.m. goes across my building. So I don't think it's really solved the problem completely of overshadowing. I like development. I just wanted to consider the neighbouring properties, and also then there's the service station. So is there going to be some contamination with this excavation? There must be some very expensive tests that have to be done to make sure that this is possible. So I'm nervous over quite a few things. The loading zone, there isn't, Kylie said there is a loading zone, but I'm not aware of it. Oh, there was talk of having a spare car space in the underground parking for a loading zone, but there wouldn't be anything at the front or sort of external back. So I don't know whether heavy, like a removalist van could fit into this narrow laneway and in and out, and how that all is configured. It just seems a little bit scary. It is a dog-leg laneway. There's a junction of laneways. I don't know how the visibility of all that is going to work.
Thanks, Ros.
Okay.
We'll come back to address some of those matters after we've heard from the other objectors and the proponent, and we'll see if we can pick up on some of those. Thank you for presenting. I'm going to ask Nicola Mattia to present now. Nicola, if you would like, you have 3 minutes to present your objections. If you could, as I said earlier, if you could talk to other matters that haven't already been raised, and if you've got solutions to propose, we'd like to hear those. Thanks.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nicola here, Nicola Mattia. I just think the plans need to be reduced. There's no 5-story buildings. I think it's really pushing it, and there's just not really the space. It's putting, everything just seems a little difficult. So I think if it's oversized, and if that could be minimised, but I think Ros has covered a lot of the points that I was going to say. Was there anything I missed? And then also, I guess, the area, if they're going to go ahead with 5 stories, then it makes everything else a bit of go higher, which I don't think the development is benefiting the environment in that way. And yeah, I just have some worry about our property. And yeah, okay.
Thanks very much, Nicola. I'm now going to ask Cheryl Aylward if Cheryl would like to present now. Is Cheryl in the room?
Look, this is Darren Dwyer here, Cheryl's partner.
Oh, thanks,
Cheryl
Darren.
is
Happy for you.
Sorry, did you hear that?
Yeah, if you could present and just state your name and where you live, I'm happy for you to present on Cheryl's behalf.
So yeah, Darren Dwyer, 135 Mitchell Street, Brunswick East. I'll present on behalf of Cheryl and myself here. The concerns we have are relating to the vehicle access up that small laneway. So the laneway is approximately 3 metres wide and about 30 metres long. Bluestone laneway, we're talking of, I think, 24 parking spaces in there, that trying to access that through that laneway fairly constantly. As presenters have said before, concerns about the loading dock access there. There's no way you can get a removalist van into that area. Mitchell Street at this end is a very narrow street with lots of development in it. So one of my concerns is around that. Another one is the shadowing, that with 5 stories, it's fine to say that it's stepped back. And yes, it is stepped back from Home Street, but Home Street's quite wide, and that doesn't address the problems of being not stepped back from the rear of the building, which will overshadow our dwellings. 5 metres high there is extremely tall. It's going to cause shadows over our solar panels, so that'll have direct impact on us of being able to be green, so to speak, and utilise solar energy. That acknowledging that it probably isn't a huge impact at 3 p.m. on the equinox. You go beyond that during the winter, it'll be completely overshadowed in that area. So our concerns are the height and the access through the parking. So the height being the overshadowing, the view into our backyard, which will be there, acknowledging what was said before, that yes, it's more than 9 metres, so probably don't care too much about that, but we certainly do. It's the overshadowing onto our property through the solar panels, the access of light into our yard, and the access through up that small laneway.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you so much. Just checking with officers, are there others that need to, in the waiting room, to object? They're the 3 objectors that we have this evening. I'm now going to go to the proponent, Anthony Pelleggi of Time Architects, as I'm representing the applicant. Do you wish to speak, Anthony?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Thank you, Anthony. We can. Please proceed. If you can pick up some of the issues that objectors have raised, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, well, first off, thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name's Anthony, and as you said, I'm representing the applicant. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to say a few words tonight. Just a bit of history. We've lodged this application in February 2020, which is almost 2 years ago. And in this time, we've worked very closely with council officers, firstly responding to initial concerns and then working through certain aspects of the development to get it up to a high standard. And we believe, well, some of the key features that we've been able to achieve is a minimum average NAILS rating of 7.4 stars. We have 50% adaptable apartments. We have a high compliance with the Clause 58 Res Code requirements, which does include overlooking and overshadowing, because that is something that Clause 58 picks up. The built form meets the objectives of the DDO, and we've used quality external materials and finishes to provide a building that's going to last and fits into that streetscape in that area, which we say has resulted in a commercial and residential building with complementary uses of the vision of this location. These comments are also backed up with Council Planning Department recommending approval for this development. Also, Council's Urban Design Unit, the Development Engineering team and Council's ESD team have full support for this proposal, which is on a site within a significant housing growth area. In response to some of the concerns raised tonight by the objectors, and some stuff that we picked up at the consult meeting. So we did provide a sectional diagram to show that the skylights at the back at 52A Home Street in that commercial building won't be unreasonably impacted upon. So we've provided that to the council for you guys to make an assessment, which we feel that those skylights aren't going to be impacted upon. In regards to traffic, we say, and so does council, that the use of the laneway is a positive and in accordance with council policy, hence the reason why we've used the laneway for vehicle access. And as suggested and agreed upon within the meeting and with council officers, we've provided a traffic signal in the basement which alerts oncoming cars into the basement. And the way that works is that when a car's coming, the traffic light will detect that and provide a red light, so no one can exit, or no one exits the basement at that particular time. As far as traffic goes, I think it's also good to mention that the reduction we're seeking isn't for the apartments, it's for the commercial properties which triggered the need for the reduction. Each apartment does have an allocated car space. And we've also got 64 bicycle spaces, including residential spaces, which exceeds that requirement. In regards to contamination, an environmental audit is going to be required, and that would be carried out before, or it has to be carried out before any sensitive residential use commences on a property. So that is a condition of the permit, and it's a requirement for the applicant to do before any buildings and works commence. In regards to overlooking, There are no windows within 9 metres, and if you have a look at the site context plan, we're kind of surrounded by other commercial buildings, and also some of the balconies at the back of the site have been provided with screening to eliminate any downward views. So we've agreed to that. As the council officer said, the 5th level is well set back from the front and side boundaries at the front of the site and will not be visible from the streetscape. And lastly, the concern about the party wall. Well, we're not going to create any damage to the wall, and any construction and techniques will be in accordance with engineering and building approvals. So I think it's also part of the building permit that photos will be taken just to ensure that no further damage, or if it's damaged, is created to that wall. And there's insurances and all that in place if, hopefully it doesn't, but if something does happen. So I think I've covered most of the concerns that have been raised. If there's any other questions.
Yeah, Anthony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just clarify that there is no noise or signal with the traffic light signalling? There's no noise accompanied. That was a concern from Ros.
Yeah, no, there's no noise. It's just like a normal traffic light.
Thanks for that. Thank you, Anthony. Councillors, are there any questions of Anthony Pileggi, who's just presented as the proponent, or of Kylie, our officer, please? Councillor Conlon?
I'm just wondering if there were some questions raised by, I think it was Ros, about some of the processes or what would happen in terms of safety throughout the process. So she raised concerns about the party wall and contamination. So I think they're kind of process issues that maybe council can talk about. So I think, with the party wall, I think there are pretty strong building regs around that, and contamination, I think, is a process that they have to go through for this permit. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Conlon. So in relation to the party wall, that's a construction issue that's tended through the Building Act. In relation to the contamination, we've got an environmental overlay on the site and surrounding area, and also we've got the service station next door. So there's conditions that must be imposed relating to the environmental overlay in accordance with the scheme. And there's also a safety management plan requirement outlined in the recommendation to deal with any potential impacts to the adjoining service station to the north. So both of those are well covered. Yep.
Thanks, Kylie. Other questions of the proponent or our officer? If not, thank you. I'm going to now ask if anyone has a motion to put, please. Thanks, Councillor Conlon. Can you just clarify which motion or alternative you're putting?
I'm putting so there's 2 alternative motions that have been circulated to councillors. One deletes the 5th floor and proposes some minor amendments, and then there's a separate one that has the minor amendments but not the deletion of the 5th floor.
So which one are you going for?
And I'm moving the one that deletes the 5th floor and has the minor amendments with it.
Thanks. So if you could get a seconder for that, please. Councillor Bolton, thank you. Councillor Conlon, please speak.
Thanks. We've also heard the concerns raised tonight about this proposal, and particularly some of the concerns around, the scale of the development for this particular area, and myself and some of the other councillors have similar concerns. So while we do understand that there is, so this proposal is for 5 stories. The planning controls and the strategic documents for this area call for 4 stories, which is a preferred height limit, not mandatory, but nevertheless that is the kind of built form guidelines that are given for this area. So on the one hand, it is an area that is identified for significant development and high density. But yes, I guess there is a balance that we are trying to strike as a council in terms of how we, how and where we concentrate development. And I believe that the fifth story is pretty excessive for this particular context. So if you look at the street, at the moment it is pretty much all single story or double story dwellings along Home Street and buildings. A lot of those have front yards, so a lot of them sort of still detached homes. And yes, so I think that there is an argument here that having 5 stories as the first development that for this transition is a significant and quick development. So while the planning scheme is trying to encourage development, there is another competing objective, which is about how the planning scheme manages change, which is supposed to be in roughly a gradual and sensitive way, which also takes into account the existing context and the surrounding neighbours. So yes, in relation to the amenity impacts, the fifth story, while it is recessed from the front street, it is concentrated towards the back of the proposal, which is also the area of the proposal that's closest to the neighbouring residents. So the idea of deleting the fifth story is basically to reduce the overall bulk and size of this development and try to minimise some of those amenity impacts to neighbours. And then I also have a few other minor amendments which are around increasing the street trees, the bike parking and the environmentally sustainable design provisions.
There are some consequential ones, sorry, Councillor Conlon. If you could just note under H, I and J, if the 4th floor is deleted, equivalent to removing one of the floors, can you just outline those for the people so they can follow, please?
Yes, I think I've said that. The top floor is to be deleted.
No, under H, I and J, can you just list those?
Okay.
Just so everyone can see what the impact is, please.
So just to read out that? Or
yes, just clarify.
Yep, so the conditions that relate to deleting the top floor will mean that there's a new condition A, there'll be a renumbering of conditions. Condition 1G will be deleted as it relates to level 4, and there'll be consequential changes to renumbering the associated conditions, including in relation to 1H, 1I and 1J, which will remove reference to that top floor.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Is that good?
Thank you, that helps me. And there's also one around the colour at 7. Sorry, I can just mention that.
And one important one, we are trying to get the developer to at least contribute to the tram stop shelter. So, I mean, if part of the argument for this type of development is that we can reduce car parking because of proximity to transport, there's a tram stop out the front which is uncovered. So I think it would be a small ask from the developer for a contribution to that tram stop shelter so that people can actually use the tram better.
And I believe also under 6.7 there's a material, the use of the colour bond is to reflect the solar reflectivity index, so it's greater than 35. So something, yeah. I think that's the other detail. Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Just getting that clear. Councillor Bolton as the seconder.
Yes, I would definitely like to speak. I strongly am opposed to a 5-storey building in this site. I think the top level needs to be removed so that it's within the recommended height level. If it goes through at a 5-storey building, this will set a precedent for the entire street, and we'll see, buildings ripped down and replaced with 5 or maybe even more, higher buildings. So I think that will help the residents. I mean, overall, I'm not happy with this development though, because of the lack of amenity inside some of the apartments where the living rooms are narrower than the code, and I'm also definitely not happy with such a narrow laneway being used to carry such a heavy car load. But I feel that if there was a refusal, I suspect it would sail through. and it would sell through with the 5 levels. So I'm focusing really primarily on the height, that one of the levels needs to be taken off so that it reverts to a 4-storey building, even though I'm generally not happy with the development overall.
Thanks, Councillor Bolden. Are there other speakers against? Or any which can speak in favour? If not, I'll just go to my notes. So we might, if that's the case, we'll now put the vote to the the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. I would ask the officer to come. Yes, it can be recorded as unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. And I'll ask the officer, Kylie, to explain the next steps, please. Thanks, Kylie.
Thank you, Mayor. So council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of a 5-storey building containing retail premises, offices and dwellings, and a reduction in the standard car parking requirements. Sorry, it should be a 4-storey building because with that recommendation. Relating to 52 Holmes Street, Brunswick East, subject to the conditions contained within the alternate recommendation, which is seeking to remove the 4th level, change in external cladding material, colour, and also additional requirements to be implemented within the public realm. Following the next steps is following the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal council's decision at the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions of the permit. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. The final item for this evening is 5.3. We'll move to that now, which is 8 Arnold Street, Brunswick East. It's a planning application MPS/2021//115. And I would ask if any councillors have a conflict of interest to disclose on this item. If not, I'll ask Esha Rahman as the planning coordinator, to present this one. Thank you, Esha.
Thank you, Mayor Ali. All right, so this is a planning application to construct 5 dwellings at 8 Arnold Street in Brunswick East. The application is at the decision-making stage. As you can see from the aerial map here, the site is located to the north side of Arnold Street. This is the site here in red. There's a council lane located to the east of the site, and a council lane to the rear of the detached dwellings and multi-unit developments, traditional style. To the west, we have more infill, intense developments occurring.
We're just going to ask you to pause for a second. We're just getting clarity about why we're getting that echo.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Seems to be the ghost in the machine tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please be patient. We'll try and get that rectified. Thank you, councillors, for your patience this evening. Should we good to go? Can we just try that now, Esha, and see if it's working? Go on. Dare you.
Thank you, Ray. Riley?
I don't know if I'm going to cry, Esha, or not tonight. It's been one of the most testy, technical evenings. I'm glad you're smiling at me. Just give us can we just have you take another minute, please? So I'm just going to suspend the meeting a minute till we get that sorted. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Yes, sorry.